Now we'll get back to the vehicle's basic controls. The ignition is a good place to start. It controls the supply of power to the car's electrical system. In the off position, it blocks the flow of electricity to the starter. Inserting the ignition key and turning it to the on position allows you to operate the electrical equipment and check the warning lights. Sometimes a special accessory position on the switch allows you to operate electrical equipment without fully turning the ignition on. Turning the key to the next position, the start position, causes the engine to start. But wait, before you do that, you need to make sure the shift lever is in park, the parking brake is on, and your foot is on the brake pedal. Then turn the ignition key clockwise until you hear the starter turn. When you hear the engine start, release the key right away, otherwise you could damage the starter. In some vehicles, all you need to do is push a button to start the car. When the engine starts, keep your foot on the brake pedal and turn on the low beam lights if your vehicle is not equipped with daytime running lights. Then do a visual sweep of your gauges to make sure everything is working properly. Before you start moving, you'll need to know how to steer the vehicle. Basically, the steering wheel controls which way the front tires are pointed, which controls the vehicle's overall direction. Successful steering starts with the grip. Remember, your hands will be at either the 9 and 3 o'clock position or the 8 and 4 o'clock position, using a symmetrical grip. Most of the time, you can steer with your hands in this position, following the road, changing lanes, handling curves, even swerving when you have to. Turns are something else. For gentle turns, you use push-pull steering. One hand pushes up while the other pulls down. For sharper turns, the hand-over-hand technique is best. In hand-over-hand steering, to turn left, you start with your hands between the 8 and 9 o'clock positions and turn the wheel with a series of cross-arm movements. Both the push-pull and hand-over-hand methods can provide continuous control, but the push-pull method tends to be less fatiguing, and with both hands almost always on the wheel, it helps the driver maintain control in the event of an emergency. Also, since your hands are never placed directly between the airbag and your face, there's less chance of injury to your face, hands, and arms in frontal crashes when the airbag inflates than with the hand-over-hand method. You may want to try each method to determine which one works best for you. Now, we're ready to move off. The first step is to move the shift lever. This lever controls the transmission, which transmits power from the engine to the wheels. Sometimes it's on the steering column. Other times it's on a center console. When the vehicle is parked, the transmission will generally be in P for park. Most cars will not start unless the transmission is in park or neutral. D stands for drive, which allows the car to go forward and automatically shift up through the gears to allow the same engine speed to make the car go faster. Most of the time, you'll just leave the transmission in drive. But when driving on a steep downgrade, moving the shift lever down one gear may help slow the car without having to ride the brakes constantly. Next is R. No, R does not stand for race. It stands for reverse, which makes the car go backward. Let's get going. After you put the transmission in drive and the way is clear, you're ready to move. The control that regulates speed is the accelerator. It regulates the flow of fuel to the engine, controlling acceleration, which is the rate at which the car speeds up. Be sure your foot is on the brake before shifting to drive. In most vehicles, the lever won't budge unless the brake is applied. After putting the vehicle in drive, you release the parking brake. Check to make sure traffic is clear and then gently depress the accelerator pedal. Keep your heel on the floor and, using your ankle as the pivot point, press down gradually with your toes. As the car begins to move, you can gently press down a little harder until you're accelerating at the desired rate. When you reach the speed appropriate for conditions, you want to ease up on the accelerator until you're just maintaining that speed. Once you're moving, you're going to need to slow down at some point, and that means braking. Well, that's one way. It causes a lot of wear to the brakes, though. The key to smooth stopping is looking far enough ahead to begin slowing down early. To slow down, you ease up on the accelerator, swivel your right foot onto the brake pedal, and apply the brake. Brake gently at first, still using your ankle as the pivot point, and increase pressure gradually until the car is slowing down as much as you want it to. Then, ease up on the brake a bit just before coming to a stop to make for a smooth stop. While you're stopped, keep your foot on the brake so the car won't move forward. This also keeps the brake lights on so cars coming up from behind can see that you're stopped. Also, if you're ever hit from behind, having the brakes applied can help keep you from being pushed out into traffic. Most new cars these days have anti-lock brake systems. In a vehicle equipped with ABS, a sensor detects when a wheel stops turning. As soon as this happens, the anti-lock brake system relieves the pressure just enough to allow the wheel to turn again. The main benefit of ABS brakes is that they allow you to retain some steering control while braking. However, contrary to popular belief, anti-lock brakes do not shorten your stopping distance. With ABS, it takes just as long to come to a stop as it does in a car without ABS, in dry or slick conditions. You know your vehicle is equipped with anti-lock brakes if you see the ABS icon lit up on the dash when you start the vehicle. If you need to slow down in an emergency in a car with anti-lock brakes, use the stomp and steer method. The computerized braking system will take care of the rest. Press firmly, but do not pump the brake. When you put on the brakes hard enough to make the wheels lock momentarily, you'll typically feel the brake pedal pulse back against your foot. This is normal. A driver who isn't used to the pulsing or other sounds made by ABS may think the brakes are not working properly. In vehicles without ABS, the wheels might lock up if you press the pedal down too hard. If the wheels lock, release the brake pressure slightly so they can begin turning again. With or without anti-lock brakes, the best way to make a controlled stop is to press firmly on the brake pedal. With your heel on the floor, use your toes to apply firm, steady pressure. Now to a more difficult maneuver, backing up. It's a bit tricky and can be dangerous. First, you need to be able to see where you're going. The only way to get a good view of the area behind the car is to turn around and look at it. An even more effective way of knowing what is around the vehicle is to walk around it. It's your responsibility to be sure that the area around your vehicle is clear. To back up, place your left hand on the 12 o'clock position on the steering wheel, your right hand on the back of the passenger seat, and twist around to see straight through the rear window. You want to move very slowly. When backing up, it's harder to see and the car is harder to control. Place the transmission into reverse and let the engine just idle the car backward. You'll go plenty fast enough, and it leaves your right foot free to use the brake to control your speed. Backing at idle speed is usually fast enough. You never want to rush when you're reversing. In reverse, the car will turn in the same direction the steering wheel is turned, just like going forward. To back to the left, turn the wheel to the left. To back to the right, turn the wheel to the right. Even though the car steers the same in both directions, there is one difference. When you back up, the car's responses to your steering inputs are much greater. This means that you must use smaller inputs to keep the car from turning too sharply and to keep the front end from swinging out too wide. While you need to see behind you, it also pays to stop for a moment to see what the front end is doing. This is especially true when backing out of a parking space. As long as you're moving slowly, you'll have time to make corrections. Also, check to see which way the front wheels are turned before you start to back up, just to make sure you'll be pointed straight backward as you intended. This way, you'll know if you need to center the steering wheel before you start to back up. Home again. Now just a few steps to make sure the car doesn't roll away. After you stop, set the parking brake and put the shift lever into park. Now turn off all accessories and lights, close the windows if needed, and lastly, turn the engine off. Check for any nearby traffic and then exit and lock the vehicle. Now you know what steering technique to use and how to effectively use the accelerator and brake pedals to make your vehicle go and stop. When you're backing up, you need to make sure the area behind is clear. Move the vehicle slowly and be very careful with the steering so you don't turn the vehicle more than you want. After a trip, you need to secure the vehicle. If you've parked along a roadway, check for traffic before getting out of the car and lock the doors.